everyone, Sergeant Argerbert here, and today we're going to be reacting to Inside the Tanks, the Centurion, by Wargaming Europe once again. We've reacted to them once before. It was a video about the T-53 and the T-54, I believe. Very interesting. Someone in the comments recommended that I react to this, so here we are. We just finished Alexander the Great series. There's 2 more episodes that I don't know if y'all want me to react to them, because, I don't know, they just seem sort of insignificant. One is about a really good speech that he gave, apparently called one of the greatest in history, and the other one is called Alexander the Great in Greek. But anyways, let's get started. Look at that, whoops. That is loud. Oh, look at those tanks. The Challenger is back.
Hello, welcome to Bovington Tank Museum in England. We're here today to have a look at this beauty, the Centurion, how it came about, and how it became one of the most successful tanks following the last World War.
So, it looks like it's an American tank. Tanks. Inside the Centurion.
By early 1943, about halfway through the war, British tanks were in a bad way.
Oh, it's a British tank, actually. Okay.
Chronically unreliable, undergunned, and mostly weakly armoured, with the notable exception of the Churchill. But by this time, the British did at least have the right ingredients. They just weren't all on the same tank. There was a really exceptional gun, the 17-pounder, originally a towed-on.
Look at that! Is a huge barrel. Look at that! Wow.
Artillery gun, and a match for the German 88. There was also a powerful and reliable.
Wait, what?
Artillery gun, and a match for the German 88.
88 is a really great thing that the Germans use, especially in North Africa, where they annihilated the British with them. They were great for defense.
There was also a powerful and reliable engine in the Rolls-Royce Meteor, fitted to the Comet, previously the Cromwell. And, most important, there was now the combat experience to help design a really viable tank. Attempts have been made to squeeze the 17-pounder gun into existing tanks, like the Sherman Firefly. Cromwell and Comet went a step further with the Meteor engine, and the Comet had a good gun with a version of the 17-pounder. But both had thin, unsloped armour, which made them vulnerable. So in October 1943, the specification was issued for a totally new tank. To combine the 17-pounder gun with the Rolls-Royce Meteor engine and around 80mm of sloped frontal armour. It carried the snappy title of A41 cruiser tank. But there was a problem. British industry then focused on building existing tanks to replace the ones lost in Normandy. So prototype manufacture did not actually start until January 1945. And the first prototype, now called Centurion, was delivered in April. But early trials went so well that mass production was ordered straight away, and 6 prototypes were shipped out to Germany for tests under active service conditions, although they never saw combat action in World War II. This is the Centurion Mark I, weighing in at 45 tons. Now you can immediately see that the whole shape was unlike all the earlier British designs, with, at last, sloped frontal armour. Up top it's got the 17-pounder.
Wait, they didn't have sloped armor before? What?
Now you can immediately see that the whole shape was unlike all the earlier British designs, with, at last, sloped frontal armour.
Yeah, because all the other tanks, like at the time, I think, so at least I know the Soviets had sloped armor, but it seems like almost everyone else
Up top it's got the 17-pounder.
Sloped armor.
And at the back it's got a Rolls-Royce Meteor engine. What's not to like?
Well, sloped armor is good because it helps, I don't know how to just, it's like better, it resists shells and bullets a lot better. Because instead of the bullet hitting it like this, it's hitting it like that, sort of, you know?
In the armour department, this new tank was so much better protected than its predecessors. There's over 150mm on the turret, and over 76mm here on the front. Now this doesn't seem very much, and it was in fact no more than the Comet, which you can see just over here. Remember that it's now quite steeply sloped, effectively making it 94mm. Our very British way of describing guns at the time needs a bit of translation. This 17-pounder translates into 76.2mm. Now this may not sound that big, but it was as good as the German 75mm of the Panther, and at a higher muzzle velocity than the German 88mm, with a similarly flat trajectory. With a standard armoured piercing round, it could penetrate 150mm of armour at 1,000 metres. With a newly arriving discarding sabot, the APDS round, this went up to a whopping 233mm at the same range, more than enough to see off any likely opposition at the time. It was a visibly big improvement over the 75 that the British tankers have been using.
Wow, that looks, size comparison, it's huge.
Secondary armour was unusual. Instead of a coaxial machine gun, the Mark I Centurion actually had a 20mm pulsing cannon, a simplified version of the Oerlikon. This was for use on targets that didn't call for the big gun, like trucks, armoured cars and infantry. There was no whole machine gun, seemed to be the case on all modern tanks. Under here is the famous Rolls-Royce Meteor engine. Now we can't see this one, but we can do better. This cutaway gives us a great view of the engine. A V12 pushing out around 650 brake horsepower. It was a D-rated variant of the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, which had famously powered planes like the Spitfire Hurricane and Lancaster Bomber, and many more.
Suspension.
The new Centurion did not use the same Christie suspension that had worked for the Cromwell and Comet, because the projected 45-ton weight of the new tank would have been too heavy. Instead, it used something called the Horseman system, which actually dated back to 1922. But this development of the principle was so good, it would even go...
1922? What would they use back then for that stuff? Because tanks weren't there back in 1922. Like, was it like tractors or trains or something
to feature
like that?
in later British tanks, like the Chieftain. It basically consisted of 3 bogies, each carrying 2 wheels which were sprung. This allowed greater wheel travel than earlier bogie systems, which greatly improved cross-country performance. In common with earlier British cruiser tanks, the drive sprocket is at the rear. This is a Mark III. There were a number of improvements, but mostly to the firepower. It now had a totally new cast turret with a 20-pounder or 83.5mm gun, which had a fully stabilised gun control system for accurate firing on the move.
Tank stabilizer demonstrates
The British Centurion tank, acknowledged to be one of the finest in the world, is seen demonstrating something which other tanks haven't got: automatic gun stabilization. This means that the gunner can maintain his sights on a pre-selected target no matter how the vehicle moves and turns or bumps over rough ground. It would be impossible for the gunner to fire with accuracy in such conditions without the stabilizer, but with it, well, the picture gives the answer to...
Did it say earlier it was made in 1945, like in April or something like that? Because if so, then that just, kind of sucks. The war only lasted for a few more months. Or if it was in April, then it was just like one more month. Or at least in Europe it was.
That one.
That tank looks so cool.
The Centurion story started well, but there was no indication then just how successful it would turn out to be. In all, there were 13 marks of Centurion, and this is the Mark 10, pretty much its ultimate form. And while it still looks like its predecessors, there is a lot of changes, some visible and some under the skin. The big difference is this.
Yeah, look at that freaking... I was saying that earlier. Look how huge that is.
The 5mm L7 gun, one of the best tank guns of the Cold War era. Also fitted to many other tanks, like Germany's Leopard 1 and even the early Abrams.
Oh.
Notice the fuel extractor halfway along the barrel. And here's the round it fired. Big enough? Now this gun could ultimately penetrate up to 400mm of armour out to ranges of 3,000 metres. Enough to take out the new generation of Soviet tanks like the IS series and even the T-55 and later arrivals. Some countries that adopted the Centurion also adapted it. Like the Swedish variant of the Mark 10 called the Stridsvagn 105C.
Oh, look at that.
Distinguished by the additional armour that have been added to the front glacis and the turret.
Actually, I think it looks a lot better. Like, look at those nice armor plates on the front. Inside.
Here on the right of the turret is the commander's position, and you can see all the way around him he's got episcopes giving him very good 360-degree view. When he's inside the turret, he's also got a number of controls. He's got turret traverse, and also the radio controls, which are just to my right at the moment. Now in front of the commander sits the gunner, who has the usual traverse and elevation controls, and also a gun sight directly in front of him. Over to the left in the turret, we find the loader's position.
Oh, that looks really cramped for the loader.
The back of the turret was used for storage, mainly the 30 caliber ammunition and also the smoke grenades. Up front, on his own, is the driver, and he has all the usual controls. Down there's the clutch, the brake, and also the accelerator pedals, and the gear levers in the centre. The steering levers are further forward on each side, and that lever on the right is the handbrake. The museum have got this fantastic cutaway of the Centurion. It's actually been sliced in half, and what it does is give us a really good representation. You can see the close confinement the crew worked under. Across on the right-hand side of the tank there, we can see in the uppermost position we've got the commander. Now the commander's fully closed down, i.e. his hatch is closed at the moment. Directly in front of him, and you can see how close this is.
Yeah, geez, there's like no room. Because like, in the Soviet tank, in the T-55, or whatever it was, T-54, it seemed like there was a lot more room.
You've got the gunner's position and all the optical equipment in front of there. And the gunner's position, to be perfectly frank, exactly the same as nowadays on vehicles. Worst position of the tank, no room whatsoever and quite comfy. In front of those two, we've also got the driver, which you can't actually see at the moment. Now, if we move across to the left-hand side here, we've got the loader's position. Now, straight away, you can see that the loader's got the most room in the turret, and he's actually got the ability to stand up.
Wow, and I was just saying earlier that they looked cramped. But they have the most room, apparently.
And stretch his legs a little bit. It's a great cutaway here, and it clearly shows the radio installation he's got behind him, and also at the moment you can see that the loader's in the process of loading around into the breech.
Look at that. Oh yeah, look at the little British flag hanging up there on that pole. Oh my gosh, it squeaks so much. Ah, that sound. Seriously, look at that long barrel. Oh. I wonder how much it was able to be used in World War II, if it even was used. Well, I'm pretty sure it was. What the hell was that?
The Centurion arrived just too late to see action in World War II, but it made up for this afterwards. First in Korea, then Vietnam, India, the Middle East, and Africa. Now, given that this tank was conceived in 1943, its operational life was incredible, and there are still updated Centurions in service throughout the world today.
Really?
But there was only so far that this, essentially World War II design, could go.
Yeah.
Change was needed to match the Soviet trend towards the bigger guns and heavier tanks,
Wow.
particularly the IS heavy tank series. The 105mm L7 met the need for a long time, but even that was not going to last forever. In its current form, the Centurion's turret could not mount ever bigger guns. So, as part of the development work to find a successor to the Centurion, new turret designs were trialled. Come with me.
Okay, let's come with
This is the Vehicle Conservation Centre, and it's absolutely crazy.
Whoa, look at those. There's like World War I tanks. The one on the left is the British tank, and the one on the right is the German tank. The German tank is literally just a box with a bunch of barrels sticking out of it in different directions.
And packed with interesting vehicles.
And meanwhile, the British tank is just a parallelogram, pretty much, with two barrels on its side. Dang, there's a lot in there. I would love to be, like, in that little place. That looks amazing. Wow.
This is the FV4202 prototype. Now, the chassis is standard Centurion, but the turret is new. As you can see, it's wider with a more pronounced slope on the front and the sides, and there is no mantlet, in a style that's become typical of the modern main battle tank. Now, the prototype had a 120mm gun. However, this, fitted at the moment, is a 105, just for display purposes. This is essentially the turret that would have been mounted on Britain's new Chieftain, considered in its time to be the best main battle tank in the world.
Wow.
Chieftain would also carry over many elements of the Centurion's tried and tested chassis and suspension, but finally with a diesel or multi-fuel engine. But that's another story.
That tank looks pretty nice. Also, I have to go to school in like 5 minutes, apparently. So, yeah. So, anyways, goodbye. Thank you all for watching. A very, very nice video about the Centurion. If you want me to react to this person again, make sure to request it. And again, I have to go to school in 5 minutes, so I'm going to keep this outro really short. Hello everyone, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to my channel. And, turn on the notification bell thingy. And if you didn't, then make sure to leave a thumbs down. Oh yeah, that would be greatly appreciated. And while you're at it, go ahead and watch my other videos. They're probably just as good, and if not better than this one right now. Except for my oldest videos, don't watch those. And, subscribe to these people down here, my fellow sergeants. They're other YouTubers that I either know or I have in high regards. Yeah, even my cat agrees. So, thank you for watching, and have a great day.